Every year, the cost of doing business goes up. Our rent, that goes up. Somehow our utilities continue to go up. Well, if you're not bringing in more revenue and you want to pay more money, where's that going to come from? We ran our business probably from like 2017 to 2022, 100% organically. So just good service, good community. But what had happened, kind of like a paradigm shift where some of our seed members, they started to churn. And we hit, I call it the toilet bowl, where consecutive months of we lost this many members, we only added this many. Me as an owner, I'm like, this is on me. How do I fix this?
What's one piece of advice you'd give to another gym owner who feels stuck in a plateau?
It would be to...
Welcome to the Barbell Business Podcast, brought to you by Big Little Gyms. This is a show where we deconstruct the tactics, strategies, and mindsets of successful gym owners and fitness entrepreneurs. Whether you're navigating challenges or scaling your business to the next level, we're here to bring you actionable insights and inspiration. Let's dive into this week's episode. Today, we're thrilled to welcome a gym owner who's achieved incredible growth and shattered plateaus in his fitness business. Jim Brewer is the owner of Momentum Fitness in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, a functional fitness and personal training gym that's been serving its community since 2013. Jim's story is one of resilience and determination. After hitting a revenue plateau after nearly 7 years, he made a bold change in 2023 and has since experienced record-breaking growth. Momentum Fitness went from a stagnant and stuck Q1 of 2023 to achieving an all-time monthly revenue PR of over $60K and over six figures in added annual revenue in less than 18 months' time. Along the way, Jim has grown his membership base, grown an amazing community, and built an amazing team. Outside of the gym, Jim is a family man, married to his wife, and proud father to his son. His commitment to family and fitness shines through in everything he does. We're excited to dive into Jim's journey and learn how he broke through the glass ceiling and hear about the strategies that helped Momentum Fitness reach new heights. Let's give a welcome to Jim Brewer. Jim, welcome to the show.
Hey, Will, thank you for having me on.
Yeah, man, the pleasure is all mine. Let's start with your story. What inspired you to open Momentum Fitness back in 2013?
So, story goes back a little bit further. I started in the fitness business in 2007 as a sales consultant at a Gold's Gym. From there, I started coaching. My first coaching job was a water aerobics instructor, and I usually get some laughs with that one. And then we went on to, I was coaching high school football, middle school wrestling, and then I got a job working at the first CrossFit affiliate in my area. While I was working there, I found out that a gym down the street that was established in 2003, the owner was looking to sell and retire. Me and another trainer approached them, and we bought his business, Momentum Fitness. So the history of Momentum goes back further than myself. It was around for a decade before I bought it in 13, and we have kept it around it's going to be its 23rd year anniversary coming up in March. So we are one of the longer running gyms in our area, and the journey started in 2013. I don't want to say the words luck, but by taking opportunities from 2007, meeting some cool trainers, working in the fitness business, taking doors as they opened, it introduced me to my now business partner and that whole buying of the gym. I'll never forget when she asked me to coffee. We sat down. She said, I don't know if you're aware, but I am going to be leaving this other gym that we are both working at. I went to Momentum and he's selling. I want to buy it. And I was wondering if you want to be my 50-50 business partner. At the time, I was 25 years old. I didn't have a dime to my name. I was still living very much paycheck to paycheck. And we were fortunate enough that when we bought Momentum, we were both able to put money down for 10% of the initial payment. And we carried it over to leverage the business to pay off the principal note for, I think, 4.5 years. We had the debt paid off, and then we were smooth sailing from there. I always tell this story because at the time I was still driving my same car from high school. And again, you're a trainer, you're coaching high school football, you're working, you're not making a lot of money at the time. And the training facility I was at was more of a personal training studio. So it was very much eat what you kill mentality, which I still believe in to this day with coaches. We can talk about that later. But when I bought the gym, I had enough money to put down to match her money for 10%. That afternoon, after the checks cleared, I had $134 to my name. And from there, it's the snowball's built and the partnership remained solid. We'll celebrate 13 years of partnership in March, and it's been an amazing journey.
That's incredible, man. There's an old saying in business that the only ships that are guaranteed to sink are partnerships.
Yeah.
But every now and then I meet some business people that just get it right, right? Like the pairing of the partnership is very complementary. It's balanced. There's good communication, and it's really, really rare. And it's something you should absolutely, you and your partner should be very, very proud of, because it's very rare that I find it, especially with small businesses and gyms. It's bad enough one person trying to run a business that has no experience. When you get two of them,
Mhm.
and there becomes this tug and pull for power and control, it's really rare that it works out.
Yeah.
I want to get more into that. Before I do, something I pulled from what you shared is, you have a sales background, right? Like you sold at that Gold's Gym early on. And it's often not a surprise to hear that from some of the most successful gym owners, as that their background usually has some experience in sales, because the sales experience gives them some teeth, right? They're not scared to make a little bit of money. They're not scared to learn about persuasion. So how has having a sales background shaped your experience and like the lens you view business through?
Yeah. So I guess my sales background is only in fitness. I was more of a laborer throughout high school and college. And then I got this job where I was working in the gym to become a trainer, and they had an opening for front desk sales. And so it was a shirt and tie, khaki pants job. You gave tours and you sold gym memberships. And at the time, the Gold's Gym was brand new. So it was still had that new gym smell, state-of-the-art equipment, cardio, pool, the whole health club vibe for our area. So being that way, I was doing a lot of membership sales. They were doing some very good marketing. So I would go in to a 6-hour shift after my school day. I was still in college at the time, and I would sell 8 to 10 memberships a night. Now, this was hourly. I wasn't paid commission or anything. I was also only 21 years old at the time. So it was just given a tour, sign them up, get them a tour, sign them up. And that's where I started to learn how to do multiple appointments. I would take 3 or 4 people on a tour at the same time, walk them through the gym, and I'd be sitting there, boom, handing out membership agreements, explaining it all, taking their billing. And I mean, I'm sitting in my chair, spinning around, going to the computer, next one, next one, next one. And that's where I was like, what I learned about selling fitness was the fact that I was not selling an object. I wasn't selling like for you in car sales or somebody at an Apple stand. I was selling a result. I was selling an experience. So that segued into what we do now, because that sales of what we are selling is pretty much the same. We do a lot more results-based sales, and it's grown as far as my ability to talk with people. But I think early on, having that ability to talk with people helped me, later in life, although I didn't know it in 2007, that this was going to accelerate where I am today, or lay that foundation of where I am today.
Yeah, that's something we talk a lot about at Big Little Gyms, right? Like sell the outcome, not a set of features and benefits, right? Because people value an outcome far more than they value like access to a sauna or access to a squat rack. Those things are important, but it's the outcomes and painting the picture of the vacation, not the travel, that allows you. It makes selling much, much easier, and selling things that people might view as expensive brings it down to earth, right? Because they're paying for an outcome. And for you, like, what's really cool there that you said is like just the volume that you did. It probably normalized a transaction for you too, right? At a young age, you're like, selling the thing and taking the money and giving someone what they paid for isn't that scary of a thing, right?
Yeah, it really wasn't. And it was, you kind of got in the habit of it, where it became more natural. What I learned later was the transaction happened at the health club, larger style gym. And then it was done. Where what I'm learning now is to take that individual and how do we nurture them? How do we get them to their goal? How do we get them to the results? How do we charge an adequate price point to cover our costs of doing business, but also put value to what we're doing to get them that result that they can then take that knowledge, take that experience, and continue on. And preferably they keep doing it with your facility and with your gym. What we learned at the largest style was, yeah, we had this great health club, but it was then starting to battle more. Well, what's the difference between the health club down the street, or what if a Planet Fitness opens up right down the road? Now we're just straightly competing on price. And what we've learned with the tools through BLG and just through experience of being in business for 13 years is really that personal connection with that person that has what grown I think in the fitness business overall, especially the boutique style that we specialize in, has been really what sustains it and keeps you in business.
Yeah, I agree. You mentioned being stuck at a revenue plateau, and I know when I met you, that was kind of what brought you to us here at Big Little Gyms. Was you were stuck. You had, you'd grown the gym to a point, but I think not a lot had changed for a little while, and obviously a lot of things have changed since, and we can get to those things. But I want to talk a little bit about like what were some of the challenges you faced in the early years of running the gym along the way, in the early days up until that point of being stuck, and what some of that felt like.
Yeah. When we bought the gym, we probably had zero business being business owners. It was kind of baptism by fire, to say the least. Some days, whenever I'm feeling like I'm going in multiple directions or getting burnt out, which we all do as business owners, I will pull up my old calendar from 2014. And I look at all the time I spent truly working in the business and doing very little to work on the business. Being on the floor from 5 o'clock in the morning till 7 o'clock at night, you're like, wow, I trained 13 people, one group of two, a group of two, in one-on-ones, couple group classes. And what changed from that point to this point was learning how to kind of pivot it a little bit. I went down just because, with a lot of what we've learned about running numbers, I went back to 2014 and just started to run the numbers from what was our membership doing at that time? What was our personal training doing at that time? Because I came from a personal training background. I do believe we still do 34% of our revenue every month through one-on-one and small group training. But I'm like, in order to work on the business, I personally can't be spending this much time on the floor. What I'm going to do is I'm actually kind of robbing my team by taking those hours of training, because you had Drew on this podcast. Drew says, hey, personal training's where your coaches make a lot of their money. He's right. So by me saying, oh, I'll take this person, I'm essentially taking money from my team's mouth. So learning how on the sales end, when I bring somebody into the gym new and they want to do one-on-one training, and just being completely transparent. Right now, my calendar doesn't really allow me to take that session, but I have a coach over here who's probably going to do a better job than me on the floor, because that is their job. Their job is to work on the floor. So where it evolved was, at first we were doing a lot more revenue in personal training than we were doing group class. To this day, that has flipped itself. And so for me, able to drive the membership or that prescription-based revenue coming in has helped me free up my time to work on managing that, working on keeping the coaches happy, keep them hungry, keep them organized, find out where they are, because the last thing we want to have is a revolving door of team members, which early on, I look at the photos of our team photos every year from like 2014, 15. I'm like, man, who's still here? Well, if they were still here today, think of what we would be doing, because the biggest cost you're going to have occur isn't so much of losing members. That is one, but losing team members is definitely probably the most expensive thing that can happen in your business.
Yeah, you've done a fantastic job building a team. I know it's a big evolution you've had over the years, at least since I've known you, is, it's no longer Jim working in the business. Given like we all have things we got to step into the certain roles on, and there's still things that we like to do and work in the business on, but it's nice to be able to pick your poison, right? What do I want to be? What roles do I want to wear today, or what hats do I want to wear today, and what things do I want to like delegate and leverage? Building a team, you mentioned that. It was one of the questions I had for further down the podcast, but since we're on it, like for you, kind of getting out of that hole, one part of it is revenue, right? Like growing the business, the marketing, sales, all that stuff. But before we get there, like, for you building a team, what was some of your philosophy or mindset in getting people together and leading a team?
Well, that's a great question. I'm going to expand on this, and I might talk in all sorts of different directions. We hire pretty much 100% internal, either through doing an internship. We're very fortunate to have the University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire a mile down the road from us. So having a relationship with that university and getting interns in the door, training them in, or a member who's interested in maybe a career change or maybe helping out to some capacity. But pretty much one of our coaches, so I have a coach that back in Open running those, working the Global Gym, this coach that we have now was a coach at this gym. I met him back when I was 24 years old, and then full circle, he came and now works for us. And he came in my first day. He was there on my second day. We hired him on, and he's an absolute amazing guy, but he says it best. Whenever people are curious about the job, he goes, let us know you're interested, and then we'll find out we have to like you. So if somebody walks in off the street, hey, I'm curious if you guys are hiring for a job. It's like, well, start with a membership. We have to get to know you, find out if we like you, find out if you align with our core values and our principles. And then, yeah, doors open, opportunities happen. We start everybody kind of at the same level where it's, if you get a class, that's your class, but that's our class. So you have to hold it. We have to get good rapport from the members that you're doing a good job. And are you looking to evolve where you're at? And the ones who have been really the squeaky wheels have been the ones who've gotten the grease. So the ones who seize the opportunity, no business really comes in. They're like, I have 80 different roles. I'm looking to fill these roles. It's more like, what roles do you know? Where do we need the help? And are you just going to say, hey, I'm going to take this and start to evolve it, and then it becomes your role? I can tell you a lot of our staff members that are full-time or stuck around are the ones who have seen like, hey, I noticed that you need help with sales. Can I help make some calls? Sure, I'd love that. And all of a sudden they're running calls, and then they're getting intros, and then they're signing people up, and they're starting to ask more questions about sales, and they're starting to become more involved in everything. Those are the ones who have really taken where they started and made it their own path to grow with our direction and communication with them to get there. You got to look at it like, where's the business need help? All right. The owner's not just always going to be like, all right, this is the role. I mean, sure, programming, the owner starts doing that. It says, this is the step-by-step process. Here you go. Day-to-day operations, you can kind of do some of that. There's a lot of gray areas in gyms. So it's kind of navigating through them to make them more black and white. But when it comes to the team, it's by me not working on the floor as much, I can communicate with them more. So my time not coaching a class needs to be dedicated to having a conversation with my Seths, my Seans, my Craigs, my Jessies, Donnies, and these coaches that are replacing me on the floor, and really nurturing what their goals are. What are your goals? What do you want to look like in a year? What do you want to look like in 3 years? Where are you at financially? Are you making enough money? If you aren't, what can we do as a team to get you there? And that's where our roles have evolved as owners.
You become a provider in a way, right? And it's huge, man. And something I'd like to ask you, because I think a lot of gym owners struggle with this, whether they're aware of it or not. I just see it a lot in working with gym owners, is like this inability to let go of control, right? Like they feel like the gym, because they started it, they feel like everything, like I have to have control over everything. It's my programming, it's my, my classes, this is my environment. And it's like this control thing. Like they can't let go and trust other people. And as a result, they can't build a team, and they can't form some leverage over the business, leverage of labor, if you will, to go and work on the bigger parts of the business that need the working on. So did you ever have to contend with that yourself? Have you always been good about, trusting in others and building a team and giving room for errors and mistakes to happen, and then nurturing people into their roles?
Yeah, it's like holding on to the vine, as you say, where it's like, I still have to have a pulse on it. I have been a lot better about just letting them take it and run with it. What I think early on, the mistake I made was just letting them go and not checking back in. Now it's more of like, hey, let's meet once a week for the first 6 weeks while you do this task. Let me see how you're handling it, how things are looking. What the real win is when you delegate something and that person actually did a better job than you did. That's when it's like, okay, now that's what I'm talking about. And a good example, I would say, with programming, I think sometimes, you see a lot of that where, so we don't do our own in-house programming. We use one of the providers out there. And then I have a coach who takes it and scrubs it for our gym and our community and our layout and everything else. And she does a better job than I do, hands down. It comes through the pipeline, and I just kind of look through it a little bit, or if she gets in a pickle, creative fatigue or programmer's fatigue, she'll come in and ask me, but she'll do something like, oh man, that's awesome. Or I'll ask her, I'll do the workout of the day with the group, and I'll be like, hey, was that the programming or was that the Donnie programming? And she'll be like, no, I changed up this and this. And I'm like, that's better. You did better than business that we're paying to do it. So that's one example. I think, when you talk to your team about, all right, this is what we need, let's get together. And if you as the owner can come up with like even 60% of it, and then bring the team in to help build out the other 40%, you're going to see a better turnaround, because essentially they have say in how it happens. It's not just you leading with the stick. It's actually the carrot. Like, guys, being a little vulnerable with your team is okay. Saying like, all right, I'm getting to this point. These are the problems we're seeing. This is the data I have to back it. This is kind of the direction I think we should go. What other things am I missing here? And then you get some of their opinions on it. And you're like, that's a great idea. And even if you came to the table with 80% of it put together, what you'd find is you're going to throw away your 20%, take their extra 20. And then as a group, you actually kind of made the system. And then the buy-in is way greater when they have say in how things work.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's great advice, man. And I think a lot of gym owners need to hear it, because it is, for me in business, that's been the biggest thing is, bringing on people, hiring, developing those systems and all that. But then also once you get people involved, trying to strike the right balance of control and oversight, but not just, leaning on people so heavy, or being so like breathing down people's necks so much that like they can't evolve and create their own style around things, right? You've done a fantastic job of that. So, getting us closer to modern day and where we're at now, and, you had a period of time where you were kind of plateaued, and then you came to us in 2023 and you decided to take action, right? You worked with us. What were some of the, since then you've gone from that, and you're a somewhat successful gym, 30K months, I think is somewhere where you were, right?
We surpassed 30K in back in 2014. We were like around 36. We were stuck between 42 and 45 for 7 years. And it was like a 2 or 3% difference. And at 1 year, we stayed within $10,000 of gross revenue of each other. It was just, you won't get more of a flatter line than where we were kind of at. There wasn't much. It was like glass ceiling. We just like hung out below it. The major issues we run into was, we know every year the cost of doing business goes up. Our rent, that goes up. Somehow our utilities continue to go up. Paper towels go up. Like, just the cost of doing business. And your team needs to make a little more money, either a greater split on their personal training, or a greater per hourly rate, or greater per class rate. That should go up annually in some capacity. Doesn't mean huge, 5 or 10%, but it should go up. Well, if you're not bringing in more revenue and you want to pay more money, where's that going to come from? And it's going to come from the top. You got to cut the cream from the top. So it'd be coming from either my paycheck or money I don't have. And all of a sudden you're flipping yourself upside down, and then that's a greater issue.
Yeah. That's, I've seen that many, many times. There's the gyms, there's like the save me gyms, or help me make my first, whatever, 100K a year paycheck, bottom line gyms, which is most gyms out there. But there's also a huge population of gyms, a good percentage of gyms that are good gyms like yours was before I got to know you. You had some of the fundamentals and some of the principles. You had some team. You weren't terrible at this.
Yeah.
Like you're running a decent business, but you wanted to go, you were there for a long time, right? And I'm sure a lot of gym owners listening to this that are trying to figure out how to make their first 10K or whatever are probably like, man, I wish I had Jim's situation, at that time. But we can both, me and you, having been there with our businesses, I've been plateaued and stuck for a number of years. After a while, that becomes your new normal, and it can be hard to motivate through that. And also, like you said, costs start coming up, especially if you have employees. And like, you might not be making much more money than you would have been if you were doing it all yourself back in the days of making half that, right? Because now you have all this responsibility. So you do, after a while, have to do something about it, which leads us a little closer, leads us to modern day. In 2023, you made that shift. You came aboard and worked with us. And what were some of the key strategies or changes that you made at that point that led to this, call it transformation, that next level?
So we finished out 2022 at a 46K annual revenue. Now, that's just the average, right, across those 12 months. After Q1 of 2023, we were averaging like 41.5. It just was kind of slowly turning the total pole. What we were doing was, we ran our business from the day one. I shouldn't say day one, but probably from like 2017 to 2022, 100% organically. So just good service, good community. I mean, we're very blessed to have a lot of those same members who have stuck with us. We have 13-year plus members at the gym. But what had happened was just this kind of like a paradigm shift where some of our seed members, and I consider a seed member anybody who stays with you for 5 or more years, they started to churn. And we hit, I call it the toilet bowl, where consecutive months of we lost this many members, we only added this many. That's an upside down auto pay of $900. And so, and, just that auto pay that most gym owners know I'm talking about, that continue, okay, $900 next month, $800 next month, $500. We ran from 22 into 23, so many consecutive months of that. Me as an owner, I'm like, this is on me. How do I fix this? What am I not doing well? Because the last 5 years of taking crap, throwing it at the wall and trying to figure out what sticks just wasn't working. We ran, and we were fortunate, and you're gonna have an aha moment here too. We did the ads in 15 and 16. You remember, we just hit a button on Facebook and all of a sudden 20 people would show up. You're like, oh, awesome. And we actually grew our gym to help flip-flop our personal training and membership revenue in that time. Well, what we were doing then in 2017, 18 wasn't working. I was one of those guys. I was getting locked up in Facebook jail every other month. My account shut down. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. Facebook changed the rules. I don't know what I'm doing. I go on YouTube, try and learn a little bit, whatever. We're sticking to our guns. We're going to grow organically because this guy who has a good business says you never have to pay for ads. Just do it this way. Well, as an owner and in a partnership, my business partner is a phenomenal person, period. But her role is our finance. She runs the payroll, the bill, accounts receivable, all the finance, accounting, the QuickBooks stuff. My role is basically like my business credit card, upload it to QuickBooks and audit through that. It takes me 15 minutes. I don't really know the nuts and bolts of the business. My job has kind of been more of a visionary. Let's do this. If it's changing the gym, remodeling, kind of flow, a lot of that stuff. And we shared a lot of hats as well. But where I did not bring to the table was my role is to bring in new people. I needed coaching. My whole life, I've never been told that I had extraordinary talent. But one thing that I have been told by coaches was I'm a very easily coached athlete. I'm very easily coached. If it was, I was a collegiate football player. If it was, hey, Brewer, moving you this week over here, here's what your job is. I was more of a, yes, sir. I didn't ask questions. I still was told. The asked question was more like, well, I'm in this position. You want me to do this and this. Okay, sounds good. I will do it. And so I knew I needed coaching because I'm easily coached. So I'm kind of walking around. You asked the question about where it started. At the time, we're looking for business mentorship. Where I looked at our weaknesses in the business was we had a leak in members leaving and we weren't able to pull water out of the boat fast enough to cause it from not sinking. So we needed to bring in more buckets to dump water out, which meant more people coming in the door. I jumped on a call with Jonathan, great dude, amazing hire for BLG. And we had a conversation and the guy pretty much was able to call out where we were. And I do remember signing up, and I can share this with you. And I think I have before, but we're on the call and it was time to sign up. And I remember telling Jonathan, can I just have a second muted, camera off, just to talk with my business partner? And he got the call and I just remember turning to him and being like, shit, I would have paid way more money than what they're asking. Let's sign up. And it was funny because I didn't know we were getting all this great stuff. It was trainings, weekly strategy calls, a website. I mean, what we paid for our website 5 years prior was astronomical compared to what we're getting in return. And that didn't get us anything. So not to just plug BLG on that call, once we got in 2023, I was still hanging onto the vine where I was going right in. I'm like, I want to learn their ads. I want to learn their sales tactics. I want to learn their workflows, their automations. Let's go. What I didn't do was go in and learn the sales process, the price anchors, and the launches. So when we capped out 2023, it was still 1 foot in BLG, 1 foot in our old ways when it came to what we were selling. we went from the 41.5 average from Q1 to closing out 2023 at a 45K average. So we were able to bring in some new people and get ourselves to grow, which anybody who knows business, to get yourself up 3K net positive in auto pay while consistently having churn, it's actually pretty damn good growth.
Yeah, it's huge. I was going to say exactly that. If you didn't, in that, like with gyms, what happens for a lot of them is it's not a matter of getting, it is a matter of getting new members, but far more subtle than most people think. In that, having just watched a lot of gyms do it, is like when you're new and you're small and no one's leaving, like it's easy to just have net positive growth every month. You can just get like 5 new members a month, pretty nominal, and you're just growing, right? Because no one's leaving. But once you've been in business for a little while, you start to have some kind of nominal churn that's always there, right? And for you at your size, even at say 200 members or whatever, even at a 4% churn rate, that's 8 people a month you got to replace. And you're not doing anything wrong. That's just the normal standard. That would be considered a healthy churn rate for a 200 member gym. Sure, you can bring it down to 3, but that's still 6 people a month you're losing. So now you got to sell 7 to grow by 1, right? And then you have like your seasons, some months, your Decembers, your Junes, when people go on vacation and check out, you get pauses and holds, and it can be a snowball, right? So it really becomes a game of like outpacing net zero churn, right? That's like big businesses. That's how they grow. They find out what their churn rate is. Okay, we're going to lose 3% of people a month. Okay, a month. So that means we need to make sure we're growing by 4% every month. So by the end of the year, we can say we grew by 10%, right?
Percent.
Yeah. Yeah, it's huge. So, and another thing you mentioned, I think, and I would agree with you, man, and getting to know you myself, is like one of the most coachable people I've ever met, which for everybody listening, that is probably one of the most valuable skills in business is coachability, right? We are all coaches, as most all gym owners. There's very few I meet independent, small mom and pop gym owners that are just investors, silent investors. Everybody listening to the show is going to be someone who's in the game, right? Like you started coaching, background in fitness, you yourself had a life change. And, so we all preach coachability, and we all know that our best athletes are the people that have this ability to, whenever you see something and you're like, hey, try it this way, they just say yes. And like, okay, cool. That's how I'm going to do it from now on. And you just literally said that in talking about yourself. And that's how you are coachable, and that like, you don't make an excuse. You don't reply back with, yeah, I do it this way because, right? It's like you just objectively take it as like, that's the way I need to do it. Cool. That's how we're going to do it. And then you get the result. And it's crazy. Like the success rate of those kinds of people in our program. And just when I know in my bigger business world and all my friends, all like my friends, I have my friends that I hang out with and I'll get a cigar with and we talk, and they say they're having this problem and I give them some advice. And then they go to like give it, oh, we do it this way or we're different because they find maybe they have a little bit of success or whatever. But my friends who are like, okay, I'm going to do that. And then like, we don't talk about it again for 2 months. And then like, I check in with them like, hey man, we talked like a couple months ago about that thing. How's it going? They're like, man, we've tripled since, right? Like, because they just went and did the thing.
Absolutely.
Right. And that's something that you share. Mike Wilson, who's been on the podcast, shares. Drew Gurton, the guys that you've mentioned who've been on the previous episodes, that I've noticed about all of you guys is that it's just extreme levels of coachability, and I always like to say pros hire pros. And it's like, why would Michael Jordan hire a guy who's not as good at basketball as him to teach him basketball? It's because the coach can see the objective principles of the game and say, hey, you got a blind spot here. And, Michael Jordan, what everybody says about him was that like he used to just be like, okay, cool, I'm going to drill that for like 2 months now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Over and over.
Yeah. And that's what they work on. And that becomes like their narrow focus is just that. So huge transformation for you, and obviously like a lot of that's like your own personal intangibilities of being coachable. And then also like understanding some numbers like churn rate, where your churn rate sits. So you know what you got to sell every month on average to keep growing. Along the way, obviously, like you get into the tactical, like what do we got to change to get X result? And I know something you shared with me that's been big is, and you mentioned it earlier, was like pricing and offering your services. How did you change that?
So 2023, that whole summer. So we signed up April of 23, end of April 27th to be exact. May, kind of getting the website put together. By the time we truly got into BLG, it was June. So my ads in the summertime started to learn a little bit. I was being pretty conservative, but really just trying to build a presence, because I think Mike Wilson mentioned this on his podcast. He was saying, talking to a friend, and he goes, the question you need to ask is people saying, oh, you're not a member of OYL? And for me, I started thinking, like, how many people in the area know of Momentum? And you talk to people, and out of like 10 people you talk to, you tell them, oh, what do you do for work? Well, I own Momentum Fitness. Some would be like, oh, where is that? And others would be like, oh, I've heard of you guys. You do really good work. I'm like, how come, 3 out of these 10 people know what we do and have heard good things, and the other 7 have no idea who we are? And it was building that online presence and getting eyeballs on the brand, and not just 100% relying on other members talking to themselves. Because what we relied on was members bringing in friends. Well, what eventually happens is, and it's a beautiful thing, all the members, their main friends are already members of the gym. That network is, we run a free friend week back, this is in 22, 21, maybe 7 people, maybe 10 total, whole week, and free. Bring in your friends, 7. We just ran one, and we've been running them every quarter now for the last year. We ran one last week. We had like 36. So that's just because we've recruited enough people that now it's new. Now we have new people who have friends that are not members of the gym that they're sharing with. And then the marketing, the strategy or the coaching that we're getting is actually just honestly taking action. The things that really changed from the end of 23 into 24 was the start. I was getting so engulfed in what BLG had to provide. I was watching the tutorials. I was watching the videos. I was just basically trying to suck in as much information as I could. What I wasn't doing were the little things. What I asked myself was, all right, I have members that come to this gym, and I can tell you who my favorite members are, what we call in business the avatar client. What is that person who maybe shows up the most, pays the most, is the first one to greet a new person, like that person. And I started putting in a little bit, I looked at myself, I'm like, all right, what does it mean to be that member to BLG as an owner? Not what's BLG just going to do for me, but what am I going to do for BLG? So the biggest thing was, you mentioned a book by James Clear called Atomic Habits. I read that book, and again, it's so much information, but one habit that I told myself is, I'm never going to miss a pro call. I'm going to attend every pro call to some capacity. So I went 2024, 50. Well, I know we had a couple that ran on holidays, but I never missed a pro call. That was big. The other thing was being active in the school group, not just, giving my advice where it was actually beneficial, but reading through some of the other comments and actually spending less time on social media. If I need to take a break from a project, I would go on to the school group with BLG and try to contribute or soak in some knowledge. And you find out, being involved in the cohort, you meet some ass kickers. You meet some very good men and women who own and run gyms that are doing a phenomenal job. And for a guy like me, that's not I'm not the smartest guy in the room, but I would like to sit next to or be around the smartest people to try and soak in some of that information. So in 24 that was the change. It's kind of wild because you can track your activity in school. My activity in school went up. My revenues went up. Can't explain it, but it worked. I met some cool people. I've jumped on some calls with some people, the calls that have been meant to benefit me. Hey, I have a question about how you do something. I'm going to reach out to this gym owner who's solved this problem, and maybe he'll give me 15 to 20 minutes of their time. Usually, every single time, I'm 100% conversion rate. A person in BLG has given me their time. In turn, I've had some people reach out to me, and I've scheduled calls, and I'm more than happy to pay it forward to the gym owner. I actually kind of like it. It's kind of fun to collaborate with somebody halfway across the country and help them solve their problem, or maybe just sharing documents that I've created in 13 years that they can have and say, hey, tell you what, don't recreate the wheel, steal this, change up things to make it suit you, and then apply it. But that was 24, one of the bigger changes. Now I jumped around that. You mentioned the price anchor. We changed that up. We created a sales process in 2024. We took the gloves off where we weren't just spending a little bit to get a little bit in. It was, this next push, we're going to run a 3-week full throttle. We're going to bring in 180 leads. We're going to scrub through every single person. They're going through this call that, we've talked about the sequence. Talked to some gym owners that run. I talked to John Gallup on the phone for 45 minutes. He told me this is how I do my calls, and we hit it hard. With that, we had some very intense growth over 2024, in my opinion, and we can share those numbers as well. But that's where we changed. We did the offer codex. We did the front end offer. We did a price anchor, and as a team of people, we built more who's going to run these sales, who's going to run these intros, and we got together and we practiced. This is what it is. This is what we're doing. This is how we're getting them in. Man, it's really worked. The other thing we did is in the end of Q4 of 23, I reached out to your wife on school and said, "Hi, Aaron, I know you run something called Atomic Nutrition. I'm curious on," and just kind of show you the route I went, "I'm curious on what it is and what it costs to get involved." She messaged me back. She goes, "Hey, Jim, it's actually included in your membership. We just got to schedule a one-on-one call." I went almost 7-8 months, just engulfed in all it wasn't the time for the Atomic. I was working on other things, and I'm like, "Hey, let's learn about this Atomic stuff." Lo and behold, it was included in what we currently have. And then we started running Atomic, and that's still evolving, but it's just another thing that helped us onboard people better, offer a better product, level us up to that next level. So that was what we changed in 2024 as well. And yeah, we knocked last year out of the park from a revenue perspective.
Yeah, it's been huge, man. Thanks for all the kind words about BLG. But all this stuff only goes as far as someone will use it. And like I said earlier, like your coachability and then like your ability to take massive action on these things and go full on is a big part of the success too, man. Not everybody does that. We always say, there's old saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't always make them drink. You're a prolific drinker.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is. That's kind of what you probably see with, if a gym owner comes in and they're like, it's done for you, but you have to do it yourself, or meet me in the middle. It's no different than you bring a member in and you're like, they're not showing up. We can't help you. If a coach comes into BLG and they're not open to showing up, or owner, it's really it's tough. So I think the bigger aspect is you have your own accountability, and then networking with other gym owners that might be able to help hold you accountable. I'll tell you, my accountability, and this is something to share, was when we do our ring the bell. I said, I'm never going to miss a ring the bell. I was probably your most annoying guy because you post on Facebook. I'd be like, when are you going to post this in school? Because I don't use Facebook. I don't want to use Facebook. I want to use school because that's where everybody's at. And I said, to ring the bell, that's going to force me to do two things. One, show up, and I got to run all my numbers. I had nothing holding me accountable to run numbers. And be honest with you, years past, what's your yearly churn? I'd be like, I don't know. What's your average cost per acquisition? You're like, I don't know. Now it's like, I have to run these numbers because a lot of my future decisions are based on these numbers. So ringing the bell once a month, I would go through my whole spreadsheet, and it was the wins. I also want to share always one, give me one area I'm struggling. And that's where it kind of started. Then you'd read through other people's stuff and, hit them a like and be like, okay, so that's awesome. Holy cow, look at what this guy did. Go follow him. I don't ever want to miss a post this guy has. Well, look at this girl down here. Whoa, she's killing it with the Atomic Nutrition. Follow. I might have to reach out to her to find out about the Atomic. And it's just
Yeah. That's huge, man. What's funny is like you nailed the very reason why I do the ring the bell is there's a subtle form of psychology in doing that. It's not just like, hey, share your wins and let's share your wins just for the rah-rah of it. I mean, it can kind of be like a cheerleader thing, but it's actually, and you see how I post them, I always make sure I say it's for you. Like, this is for you. It's like, yeah, it could come off as bragging, but it actually seeing the brain does some crazy things when you type it out and look at it versus like our internal monologues around it, even though you've won, just typing it out. Plus it also forces you, like you said, to look at your numbers a little closer. And then the big thing, the big thing that we're trying to create with it is like a rising tide lifts all ships. But it does depend if your boat's on the water, right? Your boat has to be in the water with the other ships. And like you've been a prolific drinker. You're someone who's put your boat in the water with all the other ships. And so, you guys you're rising together. You're leveraging the biggest resource in BLG, which is the networking and collective of all the other gym owners that are just like yourself that want to share and win together. And so that kind of segues to like the next thing I wanted to ask you about that you shared with me prior to us jumping on the call, which was like, you've formed a collective inside BLG with some other gym owners. You came to the live event. You were already doing a good job of it on the internet, but once you bring it in person, it takes it to another level. You came to the Barbell business at the end of last year, and you made some friends. Friends of mine are now friends of yours. We all hang out together at the live events, and you benefited hugely from networking with them. And I don't want to. I don't want to spoil it. I'd rather you share how that's benefited you and what you've learned and how masterminding has benefited you and your business.
That for me was what we were looking for. As much as it was the tools where I knew you got fulfillment, you got finance, you got marketing and sales, and I knew my sales piece that was my weak point. So I signed up for BLG. What I was truly looking for was finding like-minded gym owners and just having that ability to share, and also having another network of accountability. Within that small cohort, it's more like you do your scorecard or don't even show up to this meeting. You do your homework or don't even show up to this meeting. That's what I need. It's like the reason I played college football wasn't because I enjoyed football. I just knew if I had to maintain a certain GPA, I'd get a degree. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have lasted in college. So kind of reversing that by having a group of guys or girls, it doesn't matter, but being able to meet and say, like, all right, this is where you're at, and really letting your numbers help base your decisions has been absolutely the next level in business growth, because by yourself, it's extremely hard to take your business on your own to the next level. You need mentorship, or you just need other people that's accountability. I mean, if you think about what we sell, fitness, nutrition, accountability, that accountability piece is truly what has been helpful for me to have to do this and this and this. And then if I'm standing around looking for something to do, it's like, I got stuff I got to do. Let's go. So that's been big. At the summit, when we went to the BLG summit, for me, I'd already kind of had some phone calls with quite a few of the people prior, just through either being on a call with Josh and listening to them, what they're doing, and being like, hey, I noticed you're doing this. I'm doing something very similar. Could I bend your ear for 15 minutes? And then jumping on a call. So it was a lot of putting faces to the guys I've talked to, like actually meeting them in person, which was super fun. And then overall, also meeting other gym owners and learning about what they're doing and being like, I forgot who, I sat next to when you were doing the Challenger route versus the Ivy League route, we'll call it. I was sitting next to a gentleman. I forgot his name. It's probably going to come to me, but he was going from up here.
I think you might have been sitting next to Boz.
I was on Boz on my left. It wasn't Boz. It was another dude next to us, but he was leaving he was like a VP of his company. He's going fully on the other side. He shared a little bit, and I remember looking at him like, this guy's got guts. He's got more guts than I have, more guts than a lot of people. He's talking about leaving a very, very comfortable thing to pursue something. And you said you got to dip down to rise up. And I think he was ready to go all in. But that's just one example, but being able to share and have a conversation, eat dinner, have a drink. It was really fun.
Yeah. Well, yeah, man, I love those events just as much. I've been doing this for a while now, and just like you run in your gym, or for any other gym or listening to this show, you get some banner blindness for your own business every now and then when the environment remains the same. Like you show up in the same building in the same desk every day, and just like a guy working a desk job, you can start to treat it that way a little bit. And the live events they're obviously for our clients, but they're just as much for me, because like when I get present with you guys in a new environment, like we did the last one in that house, we rented that like estate at the base of Camelback Mountain here in Scottsdale, and it had like an owner, whoever he was, built himself like an underground cave in the building. Yeah, it was like a speakeasy, and it had like a hidden trap door that went down in like a stone cave pretty much. And we saw that building, like, this is where we're doing the mastermind. And we all huddled up in that room. There's about 25 or 30 of us in a maybe 1,500 square foot room, but it made this like intimate vibe and scene, and the sharing. And it was also just the people too. We had the right people in the right room in the right place. It was so cool. And it was like that environment for me made me excited about my own business again, like, which I'm always excited. I love what I do. I'm super grateful for what I do. But like I said, there's always a little bit of band or blindness in your environments. So changing up your environments is huge. And I guess I'll take this opportunity to plug our own stuff for a minute. The Barbell Business Mastermind, something for those that are listening to kind of stay tuned for in upcoming episodes is we're going to actually be announcing the dates for our next Barbell Business Mastermind. As of this recording, it's early 2024. We plan end of spring, April, May sometime to have our next live event. And that event's open to anybody and everybody listening. It's not just BLG clients, but BLG clients do get the invite first because they're usually limited spaces. Usually we pick a very cool venue, like a private estate or a house or something very, very high end. That way we put ourselves in an environment where it's conducive for creativity and sharing and everybody's having a good time. There's usually limited spots for that. So, keep your ears open for when we announce that. And when we do announce that, we'll sure enough put the link down below this video, and we'll make sure in the next ones we get the link out to you guys. But yeah, getting back to it, Jim, thank you for sharing that. I want to kind of segue over to, working with business partners real quick. I want to speak to that a little bit. I mean, you already kind of shared a little bit. I mean, you think very highly of your business partner, which is very rare. Most people kind of look at their business partners as equals. And so there's this tug and pull of like, hey, we're both good at the same things. For you, what I heard you say earlier is you talked about how amazing your business partner was. So, it's clear that you look up to them in a certain way and you're respectful of them. And you also mentioned that like there's things that you're good at and these are your jobs and this is your lane. And then they have their lane, which it sounds like that person is very, very good at finance and understand that side of business, which admittedly is not where you like to place your focus in business. So, without me rambling on, speak to that a little bit,
so,
of how that you guys have found balance like that.
It's just like divine intervention, I guess. The way we kind of met to the risk that we took together 13 years ago, we developed a amazing friendship. I mean, if you were to go ask 21-year-old Jim, when he first got into the fitness business, by the time he's almost 40, one of his best friends is going to be a female who's 56, has 3 kids. In the real world, I would have laughed at that. Well, fast forward, one of my best friends is my business partner. Her and I we're family. I'm part of her family. She's definitely part of mine. Our disagreements have always been solved. And what we truly have is just like-minded values where things will kind of come up. And whether it's a member losing their job, something internal, something be solved, it's like we look at each other and we already have made the decision that's the same without even having to talk about it. Yeah, we're going to sponsor this person's membership. They just got laid off. So something like that. Or, and she's extremely good with people. That's probably one of her other amazing strengths is just being and it could be because she's raised 3 awesome kids and she just knows like sometimes running a gym is very similar to running like a elementary school or middle school setting. So she's extremely good at handling things. That's one of the areas that I'm wanting to improve on is just my ability to be more aware and when I see something going on, how to approach it with a tactfulness to it. And she's extremely good at that. So as far as the partnership, I think it's been good communication. We both made the same mistakes. We both learned from our mistakes. There was a time in our business, we were in both 2 different realms of our life. I go back and look at what she was able to do with 3 kids under 12 at the time. Really, I mean, I think she's actually the biggest ass kicker I know in regards to that, being like super mom, super owner, super coach. And, when we first met, I think I don't think she'll get mad at me for telling her, she was like 42 and I would have been like 25. And we just got to get to know each other. She took a huge risk on a young guy. I mean, she didn't know me very well at all. She just knew, hey, I'm looking to buy this gym. Do you want to partner? At the time, I'm like, I don't have anything to lose. At this point, I only had $134 to my name a couple of years prior to that. So what's the big deal? I was able to save up some money. Let's throw it all in there. This is probably the best money I could spend, which I learned later it was. But as far as continuing we had a similar value. I don't think it was, I don't know. I don't want to be that guy, but it was a blessing, but truly just worked out. We were just a good match and a good fit. And we still are great friends. Preparing for her retirement on her terms, just to segue her into the next chapter of her life is where we are working right now. And, I think the bigger thing for me is taking on her roles of finance and having an understanding. But hey, guess what? In our weekly pro call once a month, we're going to talk finance, and also keeping a good relationship with her. So that way I still have her around to answer those questions and to help me have success in the gym. Because she, just like when my day comes that I'm done in the fitness business, I would love to see Momentum make it to 50 years. I think that is my goal. I want to see Momentum go to 50 years. Am I going to take it to 50 years? I don't know. I have an answer for that. But we're at 20, we're at 20, what is it? 20, we're at 22 years right now. Halfway. If we can make it to 50 years, sure. Is it me at the helm, or one day am I going to be able to nurture the next person in? But hey, Jackie took it with me to 13 years. Now, by myself, I think I can take it to 35 years. And then we'll see what the world brings. But she still has vested interest in the success of Momentum because her legacy is also with that brand and with that gym. And that's what's super important. This is also someone to add. The gentleman we bought the gym from in 2013, his name's Kurt. He's still a member. He comes into our 8 o'clock class. He's still a mentor of mine. I love talking with Kurt. Kurt's an amazing dude. So the way this whole thing happened full circle, he's the original owner is still at the gym. We didn't just kick him to the curb. We still made it. And there's a book called Good to Great, and they talk about these CEOs that eventually step down, but they still have an office at their spot. And that's where my shift is like, regardless of if Kurt still offices at the gym, he's still there working out, trains his grandkids. Jackie's still going to office at the gym. She's still going to be involved. She's going to get invited to team events, whether or not she coaches. She's still going to have that legacy at the gym, and that's important. And I want to be sure that that's sustainable and continues on for generations.
Yeah. You might have one of the healthiest views on business I've seen any gym owner have. And it's another rare thing is that so many business owners aren't really business owners. They kind of align with their business in a self-employed fashion, right? Like, this business is just a label I slap on like a different version of me, and it's really just a job for me. What you've done, and what I hear you saying, that you hear all the best business books say, is that you've detached, you and your owners and prior ownership detached your personal self from the business, and it's its own entity. Momentum Fitness is its own living, breathing thing, and you happen to be like, more or less its parent and its overseer right now, and both you and your partner are objectively making decisions that are in the best interest of that business, the same way you would for a child. And, it kind of segues into one of my favorite quotes in business is that, like, every human will go out of business at some point. And there's only 3 ways that you go out of business, and you inevitably will choose one of them, or one of them will choose you. One of them is that you go out of business, like you bankrupt the business, right? Like that's the one no one wants. That happens to like 85 or 90% of businesses. The second one, which is also not very desirable, is you die owning the business, and then the business, either gets handed off. Most of the time, the business just goes down at that point because the business doesn't have its own identity, right? It's really an extension of that owner who's no longer now around. So that's a rarer one. Most people don't die owning their business, but it does happen. Also not desirable. And then there's a third one, which is the most desirable outcome, is that you sell the business,
Yep.
right? In your situation, someone sold the business to you and your partner. Your partner's moving on to their next phase of life, and They want the business to go on and be healthy because it is its own entity, it has its own identity. It's not her. It's an extent. Sure, there's genetics. Her DNA is in
Yeah.
it. Your DNA is in it. The prior owner that sold you guys the business, their DNA is in it. But really, it's not really you. It's its own thing, right? So in the next step of the lineage of this business, it'll be sold to you and acquired. And then there'll be a time where you're already thinking about, you just said it, there'll be a day where you got to think about that. And so in the meantime, you'll do right by it and you'll make sure it grows to the next level. And then there'll be that next evolution.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's just huge.
I look at it where
it's a beautiful
momentum
thing.
is more powerful than any coach and any owner. It's like you said, it's its own identity. It's like its own ship, and it's going to get captained by other captains as it continues to, sail across the seas, to say the least. And I view it like that. Where right now, it's not ready to be captained by anyone else yet. It's not there. It's going to go to me, and Jackie's going to retire, and I'm going to run the ship for a while. But I'll captain it as long as I can possibly captain it. And then it's also reassuring too that everything happened to this point where, I had my son, I joined BL, and now Jackie's looking to retire. So I'm losing my Mario's losing Luigi, but it's going to be fine. And having BLG as on my team, it's big because that gives me a little bit more reassurance. So having my mastermind group of being like, I got some other people's inputs on some things. It's not just on me to create some things. And a lot of the coaching that we've received, the strategy has been more like, now I at least got a plan. Now I have an objective. Now I have measurables. Now I have, it's constantly evolving where it's, trying to find words for it, but I have more of a game plan in place now than I've ever had before. And so it gives me a little bit more of that confidence going into the game. In football, offensive script their first 20 plays. After that first 20, they go a cappella or they go off script or they make some adjustments. Now, that's what we do here. We kind of script them out and you see what works. It's like, hey, this is working. Keep running this. We have to deviate here, fix here. But it's the long game that we talk about that has been helpful, where it's not like, hey, I need 200 members next month. For me, it's more, I need to keep my ship afloat. I need to keep my deck clean, and I need to continue to, nice linear line is all we're looking for. We're not looking for a great peak. And I think that this year, after coming off of 2024, the goals for 2025 are super attainable. And that clear path has been what's different between those other 7 years.
Yeah, that's huge, man. What's one piece of advice you'd give to another gym owner who feels stuck in a plateau? What's an advice you'd give them?
Honestly, it would be to a couple of things: being vulnerable and showcasing your weaknesses, and not thinking you know it all, and also not thinking that you can't ask for help. That'd be the one area that I would suggest. The other one is, we used to have this, we'd say win. All right. In football, we have this term WIN, win. It stands for what's important now. And it's really laying that out in your business, because when I started in 2014, I had 40 laser beams going in 40 different directions. And it kind of continued like that. And it always does sometimes turn into that too. But focusing on just that one thing and continuing to focus on that, then moving into the next thing. Where we fall short is multitasking, trying to do 3 things at once. I think one of the most reassuring things you talked about on one of the pro calls was when it's time to do this other stuff. Right now is our window to focus on sales, bringing in members, fulfillment, getting that done. And then if it's one of those things like, hey, we're going to rearrange the gym, we're going to revamp our programming, that doesn't happen right now. That's going to wait until this point. At this point, now you can clean your kitchen a little bit. But right now, we're cooking. We're making hay while the sun shines. And that's been important for me to hear that, because then I can communicate that with my team. When they bring up a problem, they're like, okay, It's a very good problem. I love how we're going to fix it. The time that we make this transition is going to be this point. Does that make sense? So you're acknowledging what the problem is. And then it's like, sometimes you got to put a little Band-Aid on some things to get to that next point. Then it's time like, hey, we got some time. We're in lull. We're in the summer lull a little bit. Let's fix this. Let's fix this. Let's peel back the layers here and let's dive into this process. So for somebody new coming in, I would focus on just one thing for the longest time. And it is laid out for you as much as it is. You got to focus on getting your workflows built out. Okay. That's all you should be working on. Once you get this done, then you move on to this. It's pretty well scripted in the BLG onboarding of where you start and where you go. What happens is if a gym owner comes in, they want to skip steps. And that's where I think that they kind of fall short. And we've seen it, right? Hey, I got a problem. When I was building this out, I forgot to do this. It's like, well, a lot to be said about when we were listening to the onboarding video and Will says, okay, pause the video, go do that, and then come back and replay it. Pause the video, go do that, come back and replay it. Don't continue on. There's nothing, so that's probably the one piece of advice for somebody starting out the gym. What I think is really cool is these gym owners who are signing up for mentorship that haven't even opened their gym yet. That's the smartest thing. I mean, a lot of my education in gym ownership came from the school of hard knocks, which means losing money or messing things up and having to learn from it. Granted, some of that stuff needs to happen in your gym in order for you to learn and grow. But for those guys searching out mentorship within their first year, props to them.
Yeah, I'd agree. Because there's so many. That was going to be one of my questions: is what would you tell a young version of Jim? And you can definitely share more of your wisdom because you're full of it, man. You got a ton of wisdom. But to that point right there is like what you think it's going to be. There's some occasions where a person nails it and they realize what it's going to be and they were right in their assumptions of like, what am I stepping into? And a lot of times it's just pure dumb luck that they happen to get it right. But most business owners find out the hard way that it's not what they thought it was going to be.
Not at all.
Because we start off very simple in our minds, we do this really simple back of napkin math of like, man, if I could just get like 70 people to pay me like $200 a month, rent's only $4,000 or $5,000, utilities are $1,000. Oh, I can make whatever's left is mine. What do you think about that way, or just this? That kind of like hope-based build it and they will come, you end up learning the hard way quite often. I guess my next question would be like, what would you tell to kind of close out that answer there? Kind of, you already had in there. What would you tell if you go back to 2013 or even prior when you're bright-eyed and bushy-tailed for the young versions of gyms that are out there, what would you tell them?
It's tough because I had to go through those things to get to where I am today. I think having a business mentor is such a problem because back in the day, man, there weren't any. Like for micro gyms, there were not business mentors. I mean, we did our first mentorship program in 2016, and that helped us a ton. Didn't really have the same values as the owner back then. So we did a 1-year stint. Plus, we weren't in a position where we were working on the business yet. We were still like, it would be, I got 4 hours of training. I have an hour to do a module, and then I got 4 hours of training again. Well, it's hard to take action on the 1 hour module that they tell you to do when you're working on the floor 8 hours. I think that would be where we started to shift, was the minute we were able to start taking time off the floor and replacing us with really good qualified people to coach. So I tell every gym owner that's probably the first one. That does come with a pain point. And every gym owner who has done this knows this pain point. It's those seed members who have been with you from day one that are used to your coaching that aren't going to receive your coaching as often, and that adjustment there. We've lost members in that I just don't see you anymore, so it's different. Hey, and I heard somebody talk about it. I think I commented on a school group when someone was dealing with that, and I said, this is what happens. This is part of what needs to happen in order to get this next level you're going for. I'm sorry, I know it hurts. You get used to it after a while. And that's been for me, I started with a small cohort, and I'm very fortunate to still have a lot of very understanding people who know I'm not doing it because I don't like them. I'm doing it because the business needs me to. It's not that I chose that I don't want to come and count your burpees. I don't not like doing that, but I know what's happened to me now is when I started working on the floor, I'm not giving them 100% of my attention because in the back of my mind, all I'm thinking about is the other stuff I got to do. And that's where I realized I can't be on the floor. I'm not giving them a service. Someone else can be focused on this because right now, this hour is actually killing me to know that I have these things that I got to do as well. And these things are going to help take the gym to the next level. So, yeah, I don't know if I answered that perfectly. And because back when I was, younger, I think back then, and Drew hit on this too, I was getting every certification you could ever imagine. Now, I don't disagree with that. Did get, like, you name a certification, I think I got it. It helped make me a really, really good coach. And in turn, it also helps me teach some of those fundamentals to my now coaches. So I'm glad I got everything, certification back then, but I find myself now looking for tools to make me a better business owner than I do make me a better coach. And that's where I enjoy. It's really teaching me a set of skills that I don't fully have all of them, and I want to continue to acquire those. And that's just, like these business skills we're learning running our gyms, they're applied everywhere. I had a talk yesterday at a buddy sitting in his sauna. He runs a jewelry company with 50 employees. He's crushing it. Man, he was talking about a problem, no different than my problems, just a different business. And I'm like, it kind of hit me like, you left with a degree in education from university, but after running a business for 13 to 20 years, you're leaving with a master's degree in business by doing it. And that's what's super cool.
It is. Yeah. No, you actually nailed it pretty well. Any concern you had about getting the message across, I mean, you nailed it. And that, like, businesses have inflection points that are, they're a little bit different for every industry, right? Like, a business that has the capacity to scale to say 100 million, its inflection points are going to be at different revenue levels than, say, a business that's maybe capped at like $1 million or $2 million, like a mom and pop gym might be. But there are shared inflection points at certain points of scale, right? And a really, really common one, there's a couple of common ones, right? Like one, like you said, of that inflection point of like, when do I move out of the self-employed role of being the person that is the burger flipper of the business? Because, like, there's nothing wrong with, if you love burgers, then flipping burgers is going to make you feel great. But that's the muscle of the business. And unfortunately, like, people just don't value that enough. In order to make it really value, we need to start using our mouths and our minds to scale up that vision to get as many people to buy our burgers as possible so that we can share that love with the world, right? Like, that's what it's all about. So if you can figure out that, then you start to really build something of value for people, because you figured out how to impart that wisdom on all your coaches and the shared vision. There's like it's not as simple as they just know what you know. It's like you're all working together towards a common goal instead of outcomes. And along the way, there are some inflection points that a lot of small business owners really, really struggle with getting through. And that's a big one, is that stepping out of it, stepping out of the day-to-day and realizing that there's going to be some there's going to be some rocky roads, some turbulent seas as you navigate that. But to your bigger point, which is that, like, and going back to like the being detached from your business, and that the business is not necessarily you are just the person who's, manning the ship, if you will. It's you going and like figuring out how to be the best pilot possible, right? Like developing yourself. And that's what I keep hearing you go back to and say, is like, it's as much the tactics and like, how do I get better at sales? How do I get better at marketing? How do I get better at coaching? How do I get better at, admin stuff? But then it's also, how do I just be the best business owner possible for this business? And you've invested a lot of time and effort in doing that, which is huge. This has been great, man. This has been fantastic. Probably one of my favorite interviews so far. I've loved everybody that's been on. Everybody that's been on is, maybe it's part of it's me also, as I do more of these, getting better at interviewing and learning how to go with the flow. But you're also someone that's really, really easy to talk to and learn from, and you're like an open book. So I got a couple just fun things at the end here to kind of close it out. The rapid fire round, as I like to call it, which are just some fun things to get to know Jim a little bit better. Just little fun things. First one I like to ask everybody is, what's your, being a fitness guy, that's, we love working out. What's your favorite movement or workout? Like, if there's only one workout you could do or one movement, what would be the first one you'd go to?
I'm all banged up. All those years of licking stamps, I'm kind of a broken wheel at this point. So I'm going to kick it old school to CrossFit Power Athlete. If you remember the John Wellborn one, It's called
I do.
Volkswagen. And I used to love doing these on Fridays because I still am true and true. Friday's an arm day. I haven't missed a Friday arm day in like 20 years. So it starts out with it's 10-1 body weight bench strict pull-ups, or you do Volkswagen 2.0, which is 10-1 plus 10 pounds body weight bench press, chained up 10-pound plate strict pull-ups. That's usually been kind of a staple in my program, especially if it's a Friday and you're like, I really don't want to work that hard, but I do want to get a chest and a push pull in because it's Friday and my shirt's in the dryer right now and couldn't jump out of bed to throw it on.
Yeah. That's awesome. You know what's funny, man, is I asked this question and I've done there's only been a couple released, but we've recorded about 7 of these now. And almost all the gym owners we're all about the same age range. We all started our gyms around the same time. We all got into this in our like 20s, and back then we were all throwing down. It was board shorts and Converse and, kipping pull-ups and whatever. Right. And as I asked that question to all the gym owners that are now, like, we're all, whatever, 40, not to date ourselves or whatever, but it's all kind of come full circle where it's kind of become like this hybrid of, some aesthetics, some old school bodybuilding stuff that we all loved doing in the early days before CrossFit, bench press, strict pull-ups, whatever that stuff is, but still some like hybridization of CrossFit mixed in there.
I'm the same boat. My competitive days are, I still would love to do one more, but like right now I'm just I have like a rehab program I got to do. Like my warm-ups are like super not sexy and just kind of like all busted up. So I'm on the mend. So I'm hoping that I can get my ass fixed so that way I can, get back into the craziness of lifting heavy and doing all that. But yeah, it's very much aesthetic and kind of keeping the iron sharp that we've built over all those years. So
yeah, there's nothing wrong with that, man. I think, it's again, one of those full circle things. I think that like, if you're active and you're getting out and playing some sports and applying yourself, you're going to maintain your athleticism when you need it. But, look good, play good, win is a real thing. Like Dion used to say, look good, play good, win, right?
Yep.
And, like I spend, I'm not actively coaching CrossFit classes and running a gym anymore. I got to be on the internet, right? And when I get on a recording like this and I'm got Jim Brewer and I've met you in person, you got a huge back, you're very fit. I'm like, if I'm side by side profiling this guy, I got to, I want to make sure at least when you're up, I can hang, So I'm like, that push pull workout, Volkswagen, that sounds fantastic. Like, I think I'm going to do that one this Friday.
Yeah, try it out.
I'm like, and it's like, it makes me feel better. And again, look good, play good, feel good, win, right? Or look good, feel good, play good, win, right? Like, that's what it comes down to. And then, like my athleticism comes out in other ways. I like to mountain bike, right? So when I'm on my mountain bike rides on the weekend, I'm like, okay, we get after it. We compete a little bit, right? It comes out in different ways as we've been around the block, right? It doesn't always need to come out and doing Fran 5 days a week.
Like, and we haven't been licking stamps every day our whole life. Like we've been hard on our bodies, and it's catching up with us. So it's nice to do, like you said, instead of going to the gym that day, you went on 10 miles on your mountain bike. Perfect. That's all. And you're like, that's really kind of at this point all you need. And I think we've all established probably pretty good nutrition habits and other things. So it's just, I think my goals of fitness are just to look the part, to live the part to a certain extent. I don't think you're going to see me spend more than 4 days a week doing a little workout. I'm not a big, you'll never see me do an open workout twice. I'll tell you that much. Like that those days are long gone. But yeah.
Did you do it when it releases and then like, what is it? 36 hours later, you're doing it again?
Monday morning. Like I got to get in before submit by 7 p.m. so I can be number 1,600 in our region. Like, okay.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. That's long gone.
Exactly. Yeah. So what's the most memorable moment, or you could share like a really funny thing if you got a story of something that happened in the gym in your days of owning and running Momentum Fitness?
Oh boy, that's a good question. I'd like to think we're always, as much as serious as business is and everything else, having a lighthearted approach to your business is super important. Well, making it a fun environment. Like I would never want a coach to pull up to the gym knowing they have to work and sit in their car until they have to go in. Like I want them excited to come in and hang out with the people they love doing the things they love. We're always kind of joking around. I'm trying to think, I'm going to Here's a few. I have this thing at an anniversary. We have our anniversary party. Our coach, Donnie, who's been with us for like coming up on 6 years, never fails. We get a big ass cake, right? An anniversary. I get a cake to the face every year from her. And I'll start out the night, kind of watch from her shoulder, looking around. And then she knows when I just had enough to drink that I'm letting my guard down. She's like 4 for 4 on pieing me in the face at some point. And it's just, it's pretty epic on how good she is at doing that. But she's also very funny and witty in that regard. I'll put that down as one of the funnier ones because I'll like see her until then. I'm like, it's not happening tonight, Donnie. She goes, what? What's not happening? I'm like, I know that you know that I know that it's not happening. And then sure as hell, it will be like that 10 o'clock, Jim twists off another one. And also I get tapped on my shoulder, turn around and pie to the face. And I'm like, so that's probably one of my funnier ones. There's probably more that I'm not coming up with. I'm probably going to remember them after we get off the call, but I'll put that one down as one of our funnier ones.
Yeah, you probably will. Almost everybody that I found on that call wasn't prepared for that.
Yeah.
That question was like, I know I'm forgetting. I know there's other ones. There's so many of these moments in owning a gym, right? Because it is kind of a big family. It's like, it is a community. And that is one of those times where you're like, okay, like I'm as much a part of this as anybody else,
Sure.
And there's so many of them, I'm sure you've had, I've had people propose to each other on the gym floor.
Yeah.
I've had,
we call it momance.
Yeah. They met at the gym, and then a couple years later, like, he's asking me for permission to propose during the warm up at the start of the class when they come in from the run. You know what I mean? Like,
and they're married and they got kids. Yeah, especially when you've been in the game 13 years. Like, now it's like, I remember when they met at the gym. Now they're married. They got 2 kids, and they're still. I mean, that's the organic. That's what makes the business more powerful than you. Is when you really create that, and you like the members are this. Otherwise, I'm just an old grocery store with used exercise equipment, but that culture needs to be maintained and managed, and that's where the team and myself and Jackie come into play.
Yeah, it's bigger than you, right? And it's still one of the things I feel so proud of with my gyms over the years is like I'm still friends with those people that got like the numerous relationships that started and are now families that are gonna. There's a whole branch of a family tree that could go on for who knows how many centuries now that like started at something I at one point was a passion project,
For sure.
That evolved into a business. What's one book or resource? You mentioned Atomic Habits, but I'll put you on the spot for another one. What's one book or resource a gym owner or any business owner, there's other people that'll watch us besides gym owners. It could be aspiring gym owners or even just business owners that just like the show. What's a good book or resource they should check out? I got a couple that the one, and this is everyone's read this book before, but it's a required reading for our internship. It's the how to win friends and influence people. I think Andrew Carnegie.
Yeah, it's been revised. It's like an old ass book, and the reason we have it as an internship and we want them to read it is we're in the fitness business, but more importantly, we're in the people business. So when I bring an intern in, it's super important that they take their knowledge of exercise, energy systems, sarcoplasmic hypertrophy versus microfibril hypertrophy. I don't give a shit. If you're not cool to hang out with for an hour, you're not going to make it as a coach in this gym. And then relating and understanding people is really a big part of it. That book is one that I've kind of read a few times, or I'll dive into and page through it again. My wife and she's read it too. That one is kind of like a staple reading. As far as other books, I'm in the middle of Traction right now. I think for me, we had that huge growth in 24. I got to get back to my principles and identity again for 25. So that was a recommended reading from a couple of guys in BLG that have been very influential for me. So I'm going to read that by the end of this week. There's another book. It's not a business development book, but it's called Endurance. Have you read this book?
I've seen Endurance. I'm pretty sure it's like in my card or watch list on Amazon. I don't know that I have read it. I've read so many that like maybe I have, but usually if it's meaningful to you, it probably would have been meaningful to me, and so I probably haven't read it.
It's in the realm of history that I kind of dig right now, which is like the 1700s through the 1800s and then the early 1900s. But it's in the early 1900s. It's about Shackleton's first trip around the world. And the reason I like this book is they get caught in an ice floe up in the Arctic, and he's got to make decisions for his team that are life or death. All right. So you kind of read the book and how he makes these decisions, but he ends up I don't know, spoiler alert. You got to read it still if I can tell you, and you still got to read it. But he ends up getting his whole team out of there, and everybody survived. I mean, and it's pretty intense book, but it's called Endurance. So what I look at is from a leadership perspective of I'm just running a gym. It's not life or death. Like, and some of the decisions he makes is we either do this and live or this and die, or we do this and die and this and live. What decision are we going to make right now? So that's one of those books that I kind of like. I like to alternate between self-development and some form of actual, like, kind of something for me. So
Yeah.
so that's the one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those are just two books. I guess try them out if you haven't read the Carnegie one. That one's definitely a must. You also have like
Yeah, that's like a fundamental book.
very
That's
much.
like Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, Andrew Carnegie's, How to Win Friends and Influence People. There's a few of those books that go back to like the early century that like people have been reading for 100 years that are kind of like, if you're not good at understanding this base level set of principles, everything else is going to be just a little bit
And like
harder.
going back, and if you've read it for 5 years, go back and just open it up again because you
Yeah.
forget through that
I
stuff.
have that book and Think and Grow Rich are two that like I've reread probably a dozen times, and I take them with me on trips. Whenever I go on trips, I'll just stick them in my backpack. If I get bored, I'm just going to flip through this, and I've got bunny ears and
Yeah,
highlights and missing pages that have fallen out. My Think and Grow Rich copy, the binding came apart, and it's now like 5 books because it's fallen into
sure.
4 or 5 pieces. But I'm going to keep it still, and it's just part of its character. But yeah, man, that's one of those books that you should go back and look at your highlights from before. And like, I like to make notes in those books while I'm reading of like what I'm thinking about, so I can go back later and look at like what was I thinking about when that hit me a certain
Yeah,
way, right? And I love what you said about it in that like you can be the best technical coach in the world and have the best product in the world, but at the end of the day, and this has been proven time and time again by like so many great gyms out there that aren't necessarily the best like technical providers. You probably are. Just the fact that you even said sarcoplasmic
yeah,
hypertrophy, know what that is. It's like that's already probably like 90% more information than most gym owners even know what that word is. But that doesn't matter because at the end of the day, like the people that are going to get the best results are the people that want to show up and use it because it's fun and exciting. It's not just the results and the outcomes. I mean, I guess that's part of the outcome. That's part of what leads to the outcome, right? But like they want to show up and do it. And so it makes it that much easier for them to use the product that you make, right? Yeah. And then traction's huge. I love what you said there about just kind of recap what you were saying there. Like, I love what you said about like kind of the swing back and forth between like sales and growth, and then going back to focusing on like, okay, and I say this a lot and you've probably heard me say it, but like you build the plane as you fly it, right? So how businesses grow best is like you push on the gas for a little while, and then things start to break. You start to see some fractures in the wall, and then you stop and you say, okay, cool, let's fix these things. Let's build the wall stronger. And then you get right back on the gas, right? And it's like, and a good business owner has the ability to kind of check the temperature, and they know, okay, we've oversold a little bit here. We've seen some cracks. We're starting to see, some fissures in the wall. Okay, it's time we start educating ourselves and focusing on that. And it's that like ping-ponging back and forth between like growth and infrastructure that builds like the best businesses in the world.
I think it just starts to like, you're constantly going to be evolving yourself as a leader from the amazing growth that we had from 23 to 24. Looking at this next year, I'm like, it's a lot more on, I think it showed weaknesses in my leadership abilities. So I'm looking at myself to bring myself up so I can be a better resource and leader for my team. Because, I'll admit, I was kind of all of 24. I was on gas, baby. I mean, we were growing in sales and marketing, and that's where my time was really spent. And now I'm looking at this next year. I'm like, I do want to do this again, but I need to fix some things first. The book Traction, I'm already halfway in, and I'm like, this is exactly where we need to go in as a team, because that's where, that's one of our pain points right now. So
that's where you're at. Yeah. You've sold, and now you got to go build the pillars underneath that the new floor of the building, if you will, right? Like, and the building's getting taller, so you have to build it even stronger, right? We did that, and we were kind of the inverse in 2024. We had like 3 consecutive years with BLG where we more than doubled as a company, and then I said, okay, like, we and our customers were never complaining, but it's just having this being like my 7th company. I knew it was coming. I'm like, if we don't take this next 6 months and we also needed a new operator, the guy that had grown with us at the time. He was great. He helped get us there, but it wasn't the guy who was going to get us next level. And he was already kind of telling us that. So we were like, okay, we'll get you moved out of here. Let's have you, hand your role off. And we did that. And it took us like, I would say we're still kind of working on it a little bit, but there was 6 months there where I had to, and it was the hardest thing for me to do in a long time, but I had to like turn a blind eye to sales because I have people on the team that do sales now, but I still like to hang out over there.
Sure.
Like I much prefer to be on like the money making, moving and shaking side of the business. And if I am working on operational stuff, I still like to go over there and like hang out with the salesman at the water cooler,
Sure.
And I had to take that 6 months and be like, sorry guys, I can't come hang out with you at the water cooler. I got to hang out with these guys over here at this water cooler on the operational side. And it grew me personally as a business owner. And I think that's when someone uses the word CEO, it's like, that's a CEO. Like they're as good on the operational side as they ever were on the sales side or vice versa. For most gym owners, it's probably inverted where like they're really product and operational people, but then they're not as good on sales. But either way, it's, rounding those things out. So last rapid fire question for you, and I usually ask this question, but for the gym owner, and thank you so much for all the kind of things you said about BLG, man. Like, I know what we do works. You obviously know it works. Obviously, it comes down to how hard the person on the other end of it's willing to leverage it and implement it and use it. We know that. But just for the gym owner that's thinking about working with us, that's maybe in a similar position to where you were, that's considering working with BLG, if they were to come and ask you, what would you say to them about us? What testimonial would you give them about BLG?
Sure. Yeah. And I definitely should probably give a testimonial to BLG here on some Google as well. But the biggest testimonial I would say would be what I thought I was getting was actually not what I got. And what I mean by that is I thought I was just getting help with doing Facebook marketing. I got way more than what I originally signed up for. I got not only a website that converts more leads, I got an education on things that I need to be doing in my weekly day-to-day habits that they're not hard. They just need to be done consistently. I also got put in a group of over 700 gym owners who are like-minded people. If you own a gym, chances are you're a pretty selfless person because you're in the business of helping others. Now, that business does need to be an avenue for you as well as the business owner. But it is something where we don't go in the gym business to get rich. But what I learned after being with BLG for 18 months, I'll be on my 2-year in April this year, was developing a set of skills that you can take for the rest of your life. When it comes to getting involved with BLG, I would tell them, take one piece and implement it. That's it. And then take the next piece and implement it. Don't try and take 40 things at one time and implement it. Because if you can just do one piece, do it well, go to the next piece and do it well, you'll find after a year that you've already done those 40 pieces in a sequence, and it's going to then take you off into the growth that you need. Yeah, I've had a couple people reach out to me about BLG that I've known just through being in the fitness space. And that's been kind of what it is. I do share numbers with them just because I'm kind of an open book and I know a lot of decisions are based on numbers. But I think what I shared with them the most was like, this is what I thought I was getting and this is what I actually got. And it was way more.
Yeah. Well, one thing's for sure, man, that you've led by example on this podcast today, man, is you are an open book, and I'm super, super grateful for it. I'm super grateful for all the kind of things you just said about BLG, and throughout the whole call, you peppered us with credit for so much of your success. When in reality, I mean, just listening to you, I'm like, yeah, I'm not surprised at all. You know what I mean? That you're a success with what we do, or really with anything. You know, it might be, or maybe it's Michael Jordan finding the basketball, sure, right? Had he picked up a football, it would have been a different story. But because he picked up a basketball, maybe that's what Jim Brewer plus BLG is, right? We met each other, and it works, and it goes. But either way, I'm just super grateful to have you on the show, man, and thank you for sharing your journey today and all the insights along the way. This, I mean, has been an amazing call. The story along the way, the growth and momentum is truly inspiring, and I know it's going to resonate with people. For people that want to learn more about you, and for people that might want to spy on gym and Momentum Fitness on the internet somewhere, like be able to look you up and follow you, what's the best way for people to do
Sure.
that?
Well, we have Facebook and Instagram, Momentum Fitness on Facebook, Momentum_Fitness_Eau Claire on Instagram. If you want to check out our handle, that's improved since, I remember my first pro call. It was asked who would like Mike Wilson to audit their Instagram at the time. I'm like, well, I think ours is pretty good. So I put in the chat, and the next week, Mike did an audit, and he pointed out a lot of things, and then we fixed it. That with my team, I don't do a lot of the media. I have 2 of our team members who are way better at than I am. So yeah, you give us a follow. That'd be cool. Love follows. And yeah, if you're in BLG right now and you listen to this and anything resonated, reach out if you have any questions. Be more than happy to help give you some resources that work for me, and hopefully they work for you too.
Thanks for giving back, man. That's amazing for you to do that, and open up the opportunity for people to ask someone who's, step ahead in the game, because that is how you learn. Well, yeah, guys, follow Jim, look him up, follow him on Instagram, spy on what he's doing, because he's leading by example of someone carrying out the principles of what we do and what we teach here at Big Little Gyms. And if you're a gym owner looking to take things to the next level like Jim has, visit biglittlegyms.com, book a free discovery call with us. We'll go through your stuff. Like Jim said, like we've done this a lot. Just with a short conversation, we probably can see through what you got going on like X-ray, and see where we need to take it next to kind of uncork that growth. And let's get you started on your growth journey. Join us next time for another inspiring guest on the Barbell Business Podcast, who's making waves in the industry. You won't want to miss it.